All right. Good Friday evening, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. We are tracking a handful of severe storms that are starting to billow up out there in eastern New Mexico. These are going to eventually get into West Texas and the Panhandle. And this is, again, what's going to drive up that chance for some storms later this evening here closer to the Amarillo area and places further south down towards Plainview and Lubbock. But just two severe warning storms for right now, both of them marginally severe with winds of 60 miles an hour and up to quarter-sized hail. So this one storm up here just came across I-40 there between Montoya and Newkirk. This one's moving into an area where there's not a whole lot out there. A couple of homesteads, a few playa lakes. You've got State Highway 156 here where it makes that S turn. That's where you've got that storm rolling into the region. But from places from House all the way up towards Ragland, this is moving in y'all's general direction, kind of towards Cannon Air Force Base. So this is moving in a southeast direction at about 15, 20 miles an hour. So expect that to be approaching Cannon Air Force Base here within the next hour to 2 hours. We also have that other storm further south, this one over in Roosevelt County. This one's northwest of Elida. That one capable of some 1-inch hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds as well. And that's the one that you were looking at earlier here on our sky cam in Clovis, New Mexico. Again, that's the severe warning storm way off out there in the distance. Not really expecting widespread severe storms today, but we do expect a handful, or at least some scattered severe storms. They could be strong, at least briefly. The biggest concern for us today is going to be the damaging wind threat. Could see winds gusting as high as 75 miles per hour today. So it's going to be one of those days where straight line winds will be a more wide felt concern for us, pending where these storms get going. But there's a live look outside the sky cam there in text line. So looking from a regional standpoint, you can see we've got just a handful of storms billowing up there along the Front Range, Sangre de Cristos, the Sacramento Mountains, and then all the way down towards Big Bend. Again, these are going to be clusters as they make their way into West Texas. Again, we're in some northwest flow aloft. That's traditionally a very good summertime pattern for the Land of Enchantment, eastern Colorado. Some of those places get some good storms to fire off of the mountains, and that gets pushed into the plains regions. And that's kind of what we have going on for today. But you can see, again, a couple of severe storms, some up there in Colorado, a few down here. Not really expecting widespread severe storms, but a handful of them possible. You can see that upper level low that brought all the rain and the torrential rainfall down in central Texas and South Texas towards, the Austin to San Antonio area where they had as much as 7 to 10 inches of rain in some places, which was lethal in some spots down there in the San Antonio region. Currently spinning over central Missouri. That one's moving up in the northeast direction. Got some bands of rain there in the Midwest and areas further into the southeast U.S. towards Alabama and Georgia. But we're just kind of waiting for this step over here. We cover 34 counties, most of them in the Texas Panhandle, 4 in New Mexico, and 3 in the Oklahoma Panhandle. So that is what we're going to be focused on for this evening. So this is kind of what it looks like for right now. Just a handful of scattered showers and thunderstorms, just a couple of them strong to severe. The satellite imagery would suggest that we are starting to see some development here. This updraft looks pretty potent over here just to the north of Clovis, there by Claude in New Mexico, not in the Texas Panhandle, but Claude north of Clovis. There in Curry County. Models do show that that one may kind of billow up and become a bit more potent here in the next hour or two. Definitely has got a pretty cool cloud top to it. So it's more than likely going to be a strong to severe storm here within the next half hour. They actually just issued an SPS statement. 12 miles north of Clovis, storm capable of half-inch hail and 50-mile-an-hour winds. So here's the outlook for today. Got a marginal and slight risk. Again, as we get further into this evening, these storms are going to start running into an area where the dew points are higher. So there's going to be some better moisture for them to work with. They won't be as isolated as they are right now over in New Mexico. But Our biggest concern will be the damaging wind threat up to 75 miles an hour, especially out there in New Mexico where we've got a lot of dry air underneath these storms. What you're getting is a lot of evaporation underneath that cloud base. All that rain and hail falling through that dry air tends to evaporate. Evaporation is a cooling process. And so we get these cold pockets of air that's very dense, and it sinks to the ground, hits the surface, and it's got nowhere to go except out. So that's kind of how you get some of those dry microbursts. Out here in the high plains, that's kind of what we're most worried about, is just seeing some storms collapsing and producing some really strong winds as they fall apart. Our wind shear's not ideal, but we've got winds, knots of about 20 to 25 knots in the 0 to 6 kilometer region. So marginally enough to get what we call an MCS going. Again, that's kind of what our model's thinking is going to happen out there in the Southwest Panhandle. You can see by 6 o'clock, it's got a pretty good cluster, or at least some linear segmenting there in the South Panhandle. A lot of that gets pushed down into Lubbock's area. We'll see what verifies. There's a couple models that have got some storms further to the north. Most of them have this stuff kind of in the central and South Panhandle later tonight between 7 and 11 p.m. Amarillo may have to wait until about 10, 11 o'clock tonight to see our chance for rainfall. All right, let's go ahead and jump back over to radar. Again, we just have two severe warm storms. If you're just now tuning in with us, we've got one over in western Quay County. This one's moving towards House, New Mexico, and back over towards Keenan Air Force Base. That one's capable of 1-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. Also have that strong to severe storm out there just northwest of Elida. This one's going to be capable of some 1-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds as well. There's another one that will probably go severe here in the next 15 to 20 minutes, if not sooner than that. And that one's right there near Claude, about 12 miles north of Clovis. This one's pulsed up very quickly, even though it is a fairly isolated thunderstorm. So there's the storm in Roosevelt County. That's the one that was warned already. I'm going to turn your camera so you guys can see this other cell that's pulsed up there just to the north of Clovis here within the last half hour. So that's the one that's got the SPS statement on it, just capable of some 50-mile-an-hour winds and some half-inch hail. So you're talking about, the size of a penny or so. We got our full weather hit coming up here in 2 minutes, y'all. So I will step away from the live here momentarily, just for a couple of minutes, for a few minutes, and then we'll be back to you guys. But we do have to cover our linear broadcast too here in a second. So there's a boundary from Vega over to Clovis. We may start to see some additional development along this thing here over the next, hour to 2 hours. That may be something to watch here closer to the Amarillo area this evening. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes, y'all. And now, for Storm Surge 7 forecast with Chief Meteorologist Corbin Voges. Good Friday evening, everyone. Take a look at your Viper radar. Got a couple of severe warm storms out in eastern New Mexico, one up there in Clay County, and a newer one there in Roosevelt County. We're also tracking one just north of Clovis. This one's got a pretty stout updraft to it. That one may get severe warm here within the next 15-20 minutes or so. This one right now capable of 1-inch hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. This one's moving in a southeast direction towards House, New Mexico, and back towards Cannon Air Force Base. So that may be one to watch if you're out there at the Air Force Base. Also got one moving in towards Elida. If you guys live out there, this storm's capable of some 1-inch hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. So just be prepared for that here over the next hour as that storm starts to move in. This is the other storm that is not severe warned. That's just to the north of Clovis, but we are seeing a really stout updraft with it. Haven't really seen that full downdraft set in with the rain. Still kind of light out there, but we do expect it to start to release some of that stuff here within the next half hour. Temperatures are in the 90s, pretty warm out there, especially for this time of year. 94 in Amarillo, 92 in Boise City. As these storms get further east, notice the dew points that they're working with right now at the surface, only in the 40s. So these are really high base thunderstorms. It's actually going to lead to mostly a wind threat. Winds gusting as high as 75 miles an hour. As these storms get further east, they're going to run into some better moisture. They're going to become more prolific rain producers, especially as they get off of the cap rock there in the southeast Panhandle. We have that marginal to slight risk out there for today. It's on the lower end of the spectrum, but that's really how the rest of the weekend plays out too. Saturday and Sunday, we both have the marginal risk across the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle. Winds will be our main concern, gusting between 60 and 70 miles an hour between the hours of 3 and 11 p.m. Let's put your model into motion. You can see again that complex of thunderstorms really starting to billow up around 6, 7 p.m. there on the model. Seems like it's a little bit ahead of schedule, but a lot of that's going to continue to move to the southeast direction as we get into Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, we return back into the 90s. We'll see a few isolated thunderstorms in the evening, and then we'll have a similar setup for your Sunday going into Father's Day as well. Let's take a look at your 7-day tracker. Father's Day going to be a little hot this year, 98 the forecast high, and then we've got some triple digits in your forecast on Monday and Tuesday before a subtle front pushes through on Wednesday morning. All right, we are back. Thank you guys for being patient. So we've got a couple of severe warm storms over in New Mexico. If you guys are just now tuning in, there's one in Clay County and then another one in Roosevelt County. We're watching this boundary here too. This may be something that allows for some additional development from, just south of Clovis all the way up towards the Vega area. And that's where we're probably starting to see some of this stuff develop out here, getting a little bit of some compression with that outflow boundary surging over to this one. So you've got this area where you're going to probably start seeing storms billow up, at least on an isolated level. If you guys saw the dew points earlier, just a minute ago, the dew points are actually in the 40s out in New Mexico. So these are really high-based thunderstorms. The biggest concern with them is going to be the damaging wind threat. As that rain starts to fall through that dry air, it creates a dense pocket of cold air, and that sinks. Dense air, at least cold air, is more dense than warm air, and so you get this downburst kind of effect, almost like a microburst or macroburst style thunderstorm where they pulse up, they start to produce some rainfall, that rain cools the air, and then that cold pool ends up hitting the surface and it's got nowhere except out to go. You can actually see that outflow starting there in that last couple scans there with that storm there north of Clovis, already indicating that it's got some relatively strong winds out there. So we've got that one severe warning storm up in Quay County until 5:45 p.m. Got this one down here until 5:45 p.m. too. This one's actually about to come across the highway to Kermit and Elida and Delphus. All of these areas expecting some stronger winds as that storm collapses and moves in y'all's general direction. So this is what that little thunderstorm looks like north of Clovis. You can see really, really high base, not a whole lot of precipitation with it. As these storms start moving into the Texas Panhandle, the dew points do get marginally better in the western half of the region. As they get off the Caprock into the eastern third of the Panhandle, we're going to see some dew points in the upper 60s. So that's where those storms are going to be much more prolific rain producers as we get into the evening and late evening and overnight hours. Again, these storms are still pretty high base, mainly posing a wind threat, but could see a hail threat as they get into the Panhandle too, especially as they get into an area where there's some better instability. Just enough marginal instability to get to a severe level, but these are going to be capable of about 60-mile-an-hour winds and some 1-inch hail for right now. That storm still's got a decent core to it, even though you got that outflow boundary starting to surge out ahead of it. You can kind of, here, we'll draw on it so you can see where it's at. You can see there's that outflow boundary right there. That last couple of scans, you can see it just start to fan out. So that's the outflow or the downburst winds from this thunderstorm here. And you're going to start seeing that race towards Clovis. You've got another outflow boundary coming in from the south too. This one's not nearly as strong, but you're getting just localized converging winds at the ground level. That actually is a lifting mechanism for additional storm development. And so we may start to see some more storms pop off out there in Curry County. So I'm going to turn you around so you can see that severe warning storm off in the distance over in Roosevelt County. So this is what it looks like down there. This is the storm approaching Elida and Kermit. Again, it's way off in the distance, but obviously producing a decent rain shaft. You can, again, see it just obscuring the entire horizon where they've got some probably heavy rains and some hail kind of mixed in there as well. So that's that storm down here. That's the one that we just took a look at and a glance at. It's in Upton right now, heading to the southeast. Is about to come across the highway there from Elida all the way up towards Delphus for that severe weather potential, mainly just due to winds gusting to about 60 miles an hour. Got a decent thunderstorm that's pulsed up there east of Tucumcari. Looks like that last scan, it's weakened considerably. It's starting to get further away from the outflow boundary. And so this storm probably won't survive much longer, but it did pulse up quickly, expecting maybe a brief downpour there on I-40 as you're heading east out of Tucumcari, or if you're headed to the west out of San Juan. That's where that storm is currently moving across the interstate. So it's just expecting some small hail, some gusty winds. That outflow wind is about to come across San Juan if it hasn't already. Tucumcari, you guys are on the backside of these storms. Probably going to start seeing things quiet down for you here within the next half hour. A lot of this stuff's going to be over in the Panhandle here shortly. Got a few storms up here. We don't want to neglect these. These are very isolated popcorn style showers and thunderstorms. They kind of pulse up and then they fall apart pretty quick. But they are producing some stronger wind gusts around 50, 55 miles an hour. So something that may be made known of. We'll actually take a look from those from TextLine. TextLine's camera's pretty close, so you can kind of get a decent view from some of those storms out there. So this is what it looks like up there. These are really high base too, really not producing a whole lot of rain. You got a few mammatus clouds underneath some of these really high base thunderstorms. A little bit of some rain, but you can see clearly through it. So I wouldn't expect more than maybe 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of rain. Someone's got the right idea, mowing the grass before the rain gets here. So let's take a look at Channing. So you can see a couple of those high base showers kind of way off in the distance out there. Got a new severe warning storm down near Lubbock's viewing area, there towards Leveland, back in Hockley and Cochran County. That one's going to have some quarter-sized hail and winds to 60 miles per hour with it. That one's going to be warned until 7:15 p.m. Central Daylight Time. If you're looking at the scroll ticker down underneath on the live, that is only in Central Time. So those warnings for New Mexico, you're going to have to roll that back an hour. So it says until 6:45 as it comes across this scroll ticker here. Just know that that's actually 5:45 local time over there in New Mexico. So here's a whole look at the DMA. You can see these storms pretty isolated for right now. We do expect them to be mostly scattered by the time they get into the central panhandle. We're still tracking to see if we can get some additional storm development here closer to the Amarillo area. I think that we've got a fair shot for rain today, but not a guarantee. So don't go betting the farm on getting rainfall. These are going to be kind of scattered. So some of us are going to see some good rain, others are not. Some of us may pick up 1 to 2 inches of rain this evening over in the eastern panhandle, whereas some of us don't have any at all. That's how our summertime storms happen. You just kind of have to get lucky. So right now, all of our severe weather is over here in New Mexico and the West Panhandle, really West Texas, not necessarily the Panhandle. These are, again, marginally severe. The biggest threat for today is going to be damaging winds gusting to around 70 to 75 miles an hour with the most intense thunderstorms. It's not going to be for everyone. Again, we're in a marginal to slight risk. So we'll go ahead and show you that here on the outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. You can see we've got that dark green. That's your marginal risk. That's a level 1 out of 5 for your threat index. Basically, by definition, that just means some isolated severe storms possible. They should be relatively short-lived. You get into the slight risk zone. This is where we have enough wind shear that storms may be a bit more organized. If they can reach severe levels, they could persist a little longer, or we could see maybe a few more severe storms than something that's just isolated, so maybe more on a scattered level, but still relatively short-lived. Slight risk also could mean, one, stronger storm that's kind of long-lived where it can maintain an updraft a bit longer than some of these, marginally severe storms that just don't have enough wind shear to maintain themselves. So that's kind of where we're at for today. Just a low threat for severe weather. Let's show you tomorrow. This is for Saturday. We've got a marginal risk again across the panhandles, and then that kind of creeps into eastern New Mexico. That's going to be for the damaging wind threat, maybe some borderline quarter-sized hail, but mostly for the damaging winds. And then day 3, same story. We're just back to that marginal risk for severe weather potential. You can see our tornado threat today is basically nil. Not really expecting that to be a concern. The wind threat is our primary hazard. Not expecting significant wind, but winds around 70 to 75 could be possible with some of those stronger storms. A lot of us are in that 5 to 15% region, which means that there is, if you're in Amarillo, a 15% chance that we have a severe wind gust within 25 miles of the city. It could be over the city, could be away from the city. It does not mean that you're going to see severe weather, just means that you've got an increased chance for it. Hail, kind of the same story. It's not as big of a concern, but in that 5 to 15% range. So on the lower side of the threat index, but still possible. So some of us could see some severe hail too this evening. So it's just the two severe warning storms in our viewing area. We technically don't cover Hockley and Cochran County down there near Levelland. That storm's still capable of 1-inch hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. These are the ones that we're just mostly watching for right now. You can see there's actually an outflow boundary starting to kind of drift to the north with some of these thunderstorms as they collapse. Got another outflow boundary here being displaced and sent out from that thunderstorm there north of Clovis. All of that's doing is just providing a lot of localized convergence at the surface. When we get that to happen, that means that we'll probably see some additional development of some thunderstorms where you have all that lift at the surface. All that air's got only one way to go. It's up. So that's where you'll see some additional storms try and pulse up this afternoon. We also have an outflow boundary. This one, a very stout one, surging west or rather east very quickly, I might add. That one again has actually covered a very long stretch. So again, this is over the last half hour, and this thing has really kind of just drifted probably 15, 20 miles pretty quickly. So it's right here. 30 minutes ago it was here, so it's 15. So you probably got, it's moving at 30 miles an hour, the outflow of that thunderstorm that's collapsing there near Tucumcari. That will be colliding with this boundary here. You can kind of see just some localized convergence of some a little bit of an outflow on the radar. So that's where we're seeing these. You're going to see some storms build up out here in western Oldham and Deaf Smith County, probably, where these two outflow boundaries will collide. Also looks like there's a tiny shower pulsing up there in Sherman County. Let's jump over to the Amarillo radar and you can see that there. That's pulsed up here within the last two scans. That one's just to the north of Dumas. I think that camera's already looking north. Yeah, so that's that little thing that you're seeing on radar. Not very impressive from a visual standpoint yet, but it did just get going. There's a lot of drier air kind of entrenched in the Western Panhandle right now. You're too far away from the mountains, and there's not enough good upper level moisture to sustain storms, at least not for the moment. Now, as we get further into this evening, that will probably change at least to a degree. So what you see out here for the moment is going to be kind of skinny updrafts. We're not expecting these storms to be very widespread. You're probably going to get some orphaned anvils too. These updrafts are going to try and billow up, and then they're going to get choked off here in the next couple hours. Now, as we get into this evening, we'll have some better moisture getting pumped in or advected into the area, especially in the eastern half of the Panhandle. And so some thunderstorms, a little bit more of a coverage of thunderstorms expected as these storms get further to the east and southeast. But that's that tiny little blip that you saw on the radar. Looks like there's a few more towers trying to go up there too. Just something to watch, but nothing of concern for the moment. That's way north of Dumas. Again, that's actually up there near Stratford is where that little high base shower is currently pulsed up at. Still some really isolated showers and weak thunderstorms coming in through Union County up there. We've got, again, a couple of storms out here in the far eastern New Mexico and back into West Texas. This one actually is getting a really, really robust there at Whiteface. That one's got a pretty good core on it there over in Hockley and Cochran County. Still only warned for 1-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. If you guys are also tracking, the heat we're expecting over Father's Day weekend, we should be close to 100 degrees on Sunday. There's also going to be some areas that probably get into the triple digits on Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday looks like it'll be the hottest day for us. Looks like we just got a mesoscale discussion. So the mesoscale discussion just talks about clusters of multi-cell storms which may produce severe wind gusts across east New Mexico and the West Texas Panhandle and parts of the South Plains this evening. A watch may be needed to cover this threat. Thunderstorms are ongoing currently over New Mexico, and storms are in an environment characterized by a large boundary layer dew point depression and large Cape values of 1800 plus joules. So relatively weak deep layer shear of 15 to 25 knots explains why the clusters of multi-cell storm mode, some of them are collapsing and others trying to maintain. So we're right there kind of on that edge of getting to multi-cell style storm modes instead of just single cell thunderstorms. This is expected to maintain through the evening. Storms are already producing some really strong cold pools given the observations of firing lines there off of the KFDX radar. That leads to primary threat being wind gusts, which we've already kind of explained to you guys. Some hail possible, given that all the buoyancy aloft could support some good hail production. And the freezing level, though, the weak deep layer shear should limit how much production of hail we see. Again, we are expecting mostly a wind threat tonight with some of these thunderstorms. Convective intensity should be maintained into tonight and this evening, gradually waning as storms move into the overnight period. They've given us a 60% chance for a watch this evening here in the Texas Panhandle and back into New Mexico. So we'll see if we actually get a watch. I'm going to take a quick shot of the Skycam there in Dumas real quick. So So you're looking at a tiny little cell there up in Sherman County. It's right on top of Highway 54 there northeast of Stratford. Stratford's kind of out over here. And then you've got this cell just to the northeast of them. It looks like the cloud base is falling apart. This is actually becoming an orphaned anvil cloud is what we like to call that. But you can see again some of it trying to rain out. So signs of life, but no thunderstorm yet. That one has dissipated. Just doesn't seem it's got enough moisture in the mid levels to maintain itself. So that's why that storm tried to pulse up, but has died a very quick death. The main shortwave is back over into New Mexico right now. We'll show you the visible satellite. So this is what it looks like from looking up above. You can see again, we've got a lot of storms pulsing up there over the land of enchantment. Again, these are some of the stronger cells out there in the South Plains. Got some isolated stuff still billowing up out here on the northwest side of the Panhandle and back into northeast New Mexico. But most of the organized storms seem to be down here over in Roosevelt, Curry, and the south portions of Clay County. So that stuff should start to move into West Texas here over the next hour. I mean, we've already got a few cells pulsing up out there just to the northwest of Levelland, which you can see there from the satellite. So that's what you're seeing. Again, all of this activity down here is really where a bulk of the stronger storms and more organized storms are really starting to develop and pop off. We've got storms out here too. They're trying to hang in there with the outflow boundary, but if it continues to surge out ahead of it, expect that stuff to probably die a quick death. So again, main shortwave coming across the area right now is kind of displaced right in this general area. This is going to move to the southeast in that northwest flow. As we get later into tonight, you'll start seeing some additional development out here in the western panhandle. By 9-10 o'clock, we should be close to the Amarillo area. By 10 to midnight, a lot of those storms should be kind of in that general area there. So this is around that 9 p.m. hour. This is probably that 10 to 11. And this is from now until 8 or 9 o'clock. So they went ahead and they dropped the severe thunderstorm warnings out here in New Mexico. These are just strong thunderstorms, not necessarily severe, capable of 50 to 55 mile an hour winds and some half-inch hail. So we may let your radar run for a little bit. We may come back here in a minute as these storms have fallen below severe limits for the viewing area. But we'll leave your live running for the rest of this evening. Again, we've got some storms still expected until probably midnight tonight that could be strong to severe. So we're going to hang around. Again, we're just going to step away from the live for a moment, maybe go grab a drink of water, and we'll be back here shortly. But we'll let you guys continue to watch the radar here, at least for the meantime. All right. Good Friday evening, everyone. It is 7:17 p.m. Central Daylight Time. We still have mostly non-severe thunderstorms in the area, but we will probably see some additional development here within the next half hour or so. Starting to see some clouds billow up along the outflow boundary out there in the distance. We're looking northwest of Dimmitt. And so again, you can see again a couple of those finite towers trying to pulse up out there. We'll see how many of those can actually manifest into thunderstorms. And then we'll go ahead and take a look north of Dumas too. This is the cell that's pulsing up there very close to Stratford. That one seems to be a little healthier, starting to hit the top of the troposphere, that tropopause. So going to get an anvil to that one here pretty quick. That one will probably get a severe warning at some point here in the next hour. But right now, still just in updraft. Don't even see any rain falling out of that one, at least not yet, but probably will here in the near future. Let's jump back over to radar. You can see again better coverage of storms down there in Roosevelt County, right there along that outflow boundary. They've just went across the highway. Still probably raining lightly there in Portales, and then maybe some more moderate rain south of Clovis there around Midway. Dora, Rogers, and Inez got a couple of outflow boundaries colliding here that will probably send off some more storms. You can see one's already pulsed up there right over the Playa Lake. That one, again, probably helping being influenced by some moisture at the surface. Probably going to end up towards Bailey Borough and circle back just there north of Enox and south of Muleshoe in Bailey County. Still tracking this one too. This little cell has pulsed up recently. It's about to move into Grady. This one is a strong thunderstorm capable of some 55-mile-an-hour winds and some penny-size hail. And then we'll jump up real quick on that storm there just to the west of Stratford or northwest of Stratford. Those will probably drift east. This one might clip town, but that northern cell probably going to drift kind of east southeast over Highway 54 and miss Stratford proper. And then we've got another little cell starting to collapse there northeast of Clayton. Little cell there falling apart near Amistad too, and Sedan. But not a whole lot happening here around Amarillo. We don't really expect stuff to get going until later this evening. You can see the outflow boundary starting to move into the western panhandle. Have seen a weak cell try and pulse up there along that boundary. We'll see if that can continue to allow for some additional development. But no severe storms for right now, so we'll just let you get back to watching the radar, and things continue to develop here. We may start to do a little bit more live coverage here as we get further into this evening. But right now, everything is sub-severe and still kind of favoring that southwest portion of the viewing area. All right, we are back. We've got a couple of severe warning storms now. Again, that one that's pulsed up there just to the south of Clovis, New Mexico. That one's warned until 7 p.m. this evening over in Roosevelt County. That one's capable of some half-dollar sized hail and winds up to 60 miles per hour. There's also this storm way up here in Sherman County, just north of Stratford. That one is capable of 1 inch hail and 70 mile per hour winds. You're starting to get a hail spike in this thing. You're getting a three-body scatter spike right in here. That's a false echo that you're seeing on the radar. That's just indicating that there is some big hail in that storm. Again, you can see that little appendage protruding out from the cell. Again, the storm cell's really right here, but you've got this hail core right in here where the radar is shooting through it and causing that false echo just because that radar beam scatters around a few extra times or bounces off of some of that hail, and it takes a little bit longer for it to reach back to the receiver there at the radar site. And so it just depicts that, hey, there's precipitation a little further away because it took X amount of time longer for the radar beam to actually get back to the radar, and so that's why you get that false spike right there. But this is what it looks like from Dumas. You can see that storm off in the distance. Still a relatively high base thunderstorm, but definitely has pulsed up and is capable of some severe limits. We'll go ahead and take a quick screenshot of it from here. Finally got a decent little rain shaft in there too with that thunderstorm. So Stratford and Stevens did fall within the boundaries of that warned polygon. This one may start to move in the southeast direction. So Stratford, you may end up seeing some strong, which definitely some strong winds from this storm, but you could potentially see some large hail as well, up to the size of quarters. That one's warned until 8:15 p.m. up there in Sherman, mostly Sherman County, but you got a small portion of Cimarron and Texas, and the backside northeast corner of Dallam County also included in that warning. So this is what that storm looks like from a different angle. This is actually from Channing, so this is pretty far away as well. But you can see again, there's that big cloud base out there. You're looking kind of northeast. Also getting a little bit of some development along the outflow boundary. This stuff's been a little slow to develop, but models have depicted that it's expected to continue to develop here over the next hour or two. Let's go ahead and take a quick look down here in Roosevelt County. Decent little cell there. Just to the west of Muleshoe. That one probably will slowly decay as it gets a little closer. The National Weather Service in Lubbock are going to hold off on issuing a warning. Morton's been dealing with some pretty heavy rain recently. Probably going to have some flooding issues out there. Already got the flood advisory until 9:30 there in the western southeast side of Morton, west side of Hockley, and east side of Cochran County. Better little stretch of showers and storms billowing up there now around Grady. Cloud top heights aren't ridiculously cold and that stuff here, but we probably dealing with maybe some 50 to 55 mile an hour winds and some half-inch hail with that storm. Jump back up here to the one near Stratford. So it looks like that three-body scatter spike or hail spike starting to dissipate in that last scan, so probably losing some of that hail concern with that one. It's still warned for up to 70 mile an hour winds. And you see that thing really start to flatten out there. Looks like it's kind of gotten a little bit shallower in its updraft too. Starting to sink a little bit as it mellows out. But there's that overshooting top. It's right there around 30, 40,000 feet. It's not a ridiculously tall thunderstorm, but definitely a pretty one. Again, this is what it looks like from Dumas. You can see that cell off there in the distance. Got a really high cloud base to it. Going to pose mostly a damaging wind threat up to 70 miles per hour. I'm going to show you some of these other cells. We'll go ahead and move your volume scan over here. You can see those storms billowed up to about 30 to 40,000 feet. You know, cloud top heights are about 40,000 feet. You can see there's the severe warning storm right there. You can see that big overshooting top that it had on it right here. There's one of those updrafts really starting to rain out now. Let's take a quick look west out of Bushland. We've got some storms starting to billow up out there. They're not really strong cells, but they are starting to pop up along the outflow boundary. So we will probably see some additional development. I don't know if that stuff's going to go severe, but we definitely have a few showers trying to go up out there. You can see some of those clouds off in the distance. Really high base. Again, the dew points out there are ridiculously low for thunderstorms today. Now let's go ahead and just jump back over and show you what those are at. So the dew point there in Tucumcari is 47. Same for Clayton, New Mexico. These storms, as they get into the Panhandle, will start running into some dews in the 50s, but that dry line still kind of setting up shop there on the edge of the cap rock. That's where you're going from 50s to higher 60s for your dew points. And so the cloud base is probably going to really start to drop with these storms if they're still surface based there as they get into the eastern side of the Panhandle. Doesn't look like it's a supercell. Was just curious because it looked like there was either some scud or some kind of like really disorganized, ragged looking wall cloud underneath it. But it looks like it's probably just scud that's underneath that storm. Talking about this little appendage right here. It's probably just scud. Again, that's where your updraft is, and then you've got your updraft right in here, dumping all that heavy rain. You can actually see a rain foot over here, which is just a really good indicator that this is probably producing some fairly strong winds, which is the main reason why it is warned up for 70-mile-an-hour winds. So there's the outflow boundary. If it continues to allow storms to develop, they may end up around the Amarillo area. Kind of watching for maybe some possible development out in this general area. With this storm up here, it's putting down an outflow boundary. They may collide. We may see some additional storms pop up here in the northwest panhandle sometime in the next couple hours. Starting to get some additional static discharges in these storms down here in the west side of Deaf Smith County. Those probably are starting to become a bit more robust. So they did just issue an SPF statement on these storms we're looking at right now, winds gusting to 50 miles an hour and some pea-sized hail. So they're not really expecting these to be severe, but they are pulsing up fairly quick. If they need to make some adjustments, they will over at the National Weather Service office. But those are the storms out there in western Deaf Smith County out here in this general area. So got a small segment of storms down here. Got that isolated cell up here that's probably producing some really heavy rain there just east of Highway 287 there. About halfway between Carrick and Stratford, you're probably looking at some decent rain accumulations there in the last hour. You can see probably some spots getting close to or at least over an inch. 1.13 is what the model says there in that last hour. And here's some of those storms starting to kind of billow up on the outflow boundary just to our west over in Deaf Smith and the south side of Oldham County too. Pan-Texas lightning mapping array really highlights that stuff out there for some higher concentrations of static discharges. About 76,000 static discharges in the Texas Panhandle so far. Not all of that is lightning, but that just means that there is a lot of some static electricity up there. Some hail, again, probably starting to collide with one another. These things are going to be fairly active in their lightning. They've gone ahead and moved up the flood advisory to include portions of Morton. But you're probably dealing with some flooding issues there in Morton. This is that severe warm storm in Sherman County, right there near Stratford. It is producing some 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and up to 1-inch hail. That is this storm up here that we just took a gander at. Not a whole lot of conversation at the offices at the moment. Things seem to be letting them ride as they are. So you can see the dry line starting to retreat west over here. This is actually the boundary between dew points in the 60s and 50s. Once storms collide into that, which we've talked about earlier this evening, that's where you'll probably start seeing these storms capable of some much higher rain rates. So you can see this boundary starting to retreat in a western direction. So you've got dew points in the 60s over here, and you've got dews in the 50s over here. Looks like there might be a train somewhere near Highway 60 over here. You can see it pop up right here and just kind of move in this direction. So it starts right here. There it is. That's probably a train or traffic going down Highway 60. Starting to get a few cells to pop up there southwest of Dimmitt. Got a decent cell that's pulsed up there around Farwell too. For the most part, these are all sub-severe storms except for the one up here in Sherman County. This one finally starting to get a little bit of some motion to the south. They've nudged that polygon a little bit in that last update, so it's mostly taking Griggs out of the warned storm there. That storm is pretty well stationary. It hasn't moved a whole lot. Can see some additional development out there to the west of it though, south of Boise City. Some of that may be some things to keep an eye on running into tonight. Again, probably will still wait for at least another hour before storms are going to get closer to the Amarillo area. Flood advisory on the way for this thunderstorm. It's going to be mostly nuisance flooding. It's really out in mostly open portions of the country between Carrick and Stratford there on the northwest corner of Sherman County. This is all going to flow off into the watershed up there in Texas County, but really not going to cause too much of an issue around Stratford. There's that other cell we saw on the back side of that storm pulsing up from the camera or the sky cam. So there's that other cell pulsing up. This one, again, not producing heavy rain. It's just in dew points in the mid 50s right now. So still has a pretty high base for the cloud. Again, you're going to see probably some rain rates as high as an inch per hour with it, but not much more than that. But again, if that persists, that's why it's causing some nuisance flooding out there just to the north of Stratford. So they went ahead and issued a special weather statement down here in Roosevelt County with some of this stuff that continues to move out of the area. All of that's trending back towards Morton. You're going to see a lot of flooding issues kind of out in this generalized area. You may see some pockets where up to 2 to 3 inches of rain have fallen. It's really been right on top of Morton. That cell is kind of back building. All right. Well, we've been watching the line of storms approach Dimmitt here for about the last half hour or so. You can see that outflow boundary about to come through town. Looks like a lot of that storminess is going to be through the western half of Palm or Castro County. So from Dimmitt to about Hart, kind of where we expect the worst of that stuff to come through, and then the southwest of there. Nazareth, you guys and Arnie may end up being on the outside looking in terms of that heavy rainfall. Hereford, you guys had the outflow come through, but probably not really going to see any rainfall from this. We've got a couple of colliding outflows over here. We'll see. Most models depicted us seeing rain about 10, 11 o'clock tonight, so we're going to really have to start seeing some development here in the next hour or so if we're going to see anything here in the Amarillo area, but things may be pretty quiet here in the Panhandle. Just have that one severe warned storm up in Cimarron County, and that one's warned until 10 o'clock this evening for 1-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds, but that's really all we've got going on out there for today. It's been pretty quiet, but that's not a bad thing. We do probably need to start picking up as much rain as we can because it looks like the next 2 to 4 weeks are going to be very dry here in the Panhandles region. Rain, at least widespread rain, may be a little hard to come by as we wrap up the second half of June.